One of my experiences, not a very nice one, was when I called 999, which I've been told to do, and the paramedics came and they were great, friendly, couldn't do enough, put me at ease, relaxed and everything. Got me in the chair, mentioned that I was DNR, do not resuscitate, and one of them just changed completely and said, well, it's up to you, can I take you to hospital, or do you want to take up a bed, or do you want to stay at home, or... And I said, I was gutted. I was like, I couldn't believe the change in him. And even his partner said, Stevie were called, outside now. I don't want anybody to feel the way I felt that night. I just wanted to die there and then. It was like whatever bit of dignity I had left with wiped away. I wasn't a person, I was nothing. I was a DNR form. I didn't even want to go to hospital because I thought at the other end I'd get the same attitude. But please let me say this, at the other end, and I explained why I was so upset, and my breathing was worse. To the nurses and the doctors, they were great. They reassured me, they said it wasn't on, it's giving them all a bad name, and helped calm me down and made me feel, not better, but made me feel not just a piece of paper. I couldn't believe that two different departments, all part of the NHS, could be so different when they're all in one. This isn't the first time I've come across this, especially when they know that you're terminally ill, they find out you're terminally ill. They change visibly in front of you, and it's like, oh, well, we can't do nothing for her, you know, put her aside and we'll go on to the living, those that we can treat. And it's degrading, it's horrible, it's not acceptable, and it's got to change. At times, I wouldn't even ring the ambulance. I thought, I'll just take my chances at home. I filled my hot water bottle, got into bed, made myself comfy, clean knickers, because you never know, and laid down and thought, right, take me if I go now, I'll go with dignity. I've been poorly for a week, and I was determined that I wasn't going to go into hospital because of the way I was treated. And I wasn't going to put myself through that again. And so really I made myself worse. But community matron came, told me off for not ringing him and got me straight into hospital. No casualty, straight to the ward. Again, I couldn't believe how two different parts of the hospital could be different. This time I was on a medical ward. For medical reasons, not the COPD or the heart failure. And it was to do with medication for my bipolar that I'd reacted to. And they treated me like a 5-star patient. They spoiled me and everything. And I thought, this is good, but it was different because I told them I was DNR, but it was a medical reason. They had like bloods to show I was there, like for my CPOD, you have sputum to show. In hospital you've always got to have something. If all your results come back normal, which mine do often, but I'm presenting something totally different, they're not interested. You're hurried up, it's like conveyor belt. While I was on this, on the medical ward, not the respiratory ward, the medical ward, I found there was a new service, like home to hospital, and I'd never heard of this. And a taxi was arranged, they brought me home, made me a cup of tea. Took pen and paper out and said, what are you doing? And she said, what do you need from the shops? And like, this ain't happening, it's NHS, come on, this ain't happening. And then I realised, I read a t-shirt and it said UK care, and I thought, it's happened again. I'm not a pensioner. They thought I was a pensioner. Because I was 60, I would have got this service. Because I look, with my illness, I'm 58, and that service was amazing. For example, if I hadn't have got that service, for example, that always happens, you can be discharged, told you get discharged at 10:15 on a morning. I've been there at 8:15 on a night, still waiting for medication. When you live on your own, you're dependent for the patient transport. Not only that, you have to wait for the medications. You've no one to pick them up for you or go the next day. You've no choice. And that is so destroying, that wait. And by the time you get your medication, they're nearly re-admitting me because I'm so stressed. Before I got Andrew, my community matron, I was in and out of hospital a lot because I had no care, no. The last 3 times I've been to the surgery, they'd had to call an ambulance. So when Andrew come along and not in a dress, that was the first shock. He rang and said, I'm community matron, and this bloke walks in, and yeah, it was great because I could bring him, I could say, it stopped my hospital admissions. It must have given the GP a rest. It couldn't have been good in the costs for them. And sometimes I couldn't even get to the GP because I didn't have the taxi fare. So having Andrew, I could say, Andrew, I'm not well, and not struggle until I could get the taxi fare. I'm not exaggerating, that's true, is that? If I could have changed one thing this month, it would have been from the time of discharge to the time of receiving the medication. If it could be within a couple of hours instead of 8 hours.